Imagination is a function of consciousness, and there are many levels of imagination, as many as there are levels of consciousness. At the lower levels, the imagination is trapped in what we call the imaginary, which are preconceived and fixated forms of fantasy, which keep one in a state of desire and fear, and in which all one can imagine are ways of satisfying an urge for jouissance, or for gratification of the pleasure principle. At slightly higher levels of the psyche, the imagination can be used to plan a future, to prepare for best and worst case scenarios, to be able to grasp the world through the understanding of symbolic forms that enable you to imagine that which you have never experienced, and enable the development of the understanding of science, philosophy, and religion. At even higher levels than that, one begins to move out of egoic imagination into the imagination that pertains to the soul, which is a devotional imagination that is inspired by a yearning for union with God, and which therefore is able to attract the elements of the mind of God that emanate into the soul, which are what we call archetypes. And archetypal images begin to occur in one's dreams and in one's artistic endeavors, in one's ways of perceiving reality. And one begins to have a sacred perception of the world, because you are perceiving the world through this archetypal imagination. This will lead you then to the imagination that pertains to the transcendent light itself, and is able to imagine the transcendence of ego, of body, of the plane of the phenomenal world. And it's this level of imagination that people enter when they go into near-death experiences or other kinds of transcendent samadhis, in which they come back with information that pertains to the future or the very distant past, or to other dimensions, other universes, other angelic realms, let's say. And at this level, there is no distinction between the imagination and perception of what we think of as reality, because the world is mind, and all of this is within the imagination of the mind of God. And so at that ultimate level of imagination, there is that union with the supreme mind, the supreme intelligence, the supreme love, that is able to create a new world through imagining it with such power that one channels the energy, the Shakti of God into the plane of the field of imagination that then emerges as a fluctuation of the quantum wave. The unified field is that field of the imagination of God's mind that is open to infinite potentiality. And by participating in that ultimate projection of the vibrational frequency of the will of God, the mind of God, the love of God, then a kingdom of heaven emerges as a phenomenal realization of the imaginal.